Of people who committed the robberies in Kansas smoke shops and in Vegas. In each one of those videos, you saw a person inside walking around with his mask on. And if you did a real analysis of it, you see that this guy's up to something. So that's what he used to do. Not because of you, because of you. You know, it's got nothing to stop the spread. We normalize the Wild West, where mass gunmen and thieves are just free to roam the city without anybody sticking a case. For the last 3 years, the city not only let in the jewelry stores, actual stores, and high-end fashion boutiques with their gates covered, they forced you to do it. And now in the midst of a crime wave, they're trying to walk it back. It might be too late. Now people have to stand up for themselves to shop. It's like this lady here.
All right, let's call the meeting to order, please. Natalie, may we have roll call?
Chairperson Phil Goldstein,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Marty Jose,
Here.
Commissioner Lisa Bard. Here. Commissioner Jeremy Wolt.
Here.
Alternate Wendy Newland. Alternate Mike Lewis.
Here.
Thank you. Any amendments to the agenda, commissioners, anybody? Oh, okay. Let's see, determine place of Tom Wood tonight. Public comment. This is general public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody who wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. I will note that all the items on the business agenda do have public comment. Has anybody signed up, Natalie, for general public comment? I understand anybody that signed up for comment is on an item on the agenda. Don't everybody speak at once. Okay. All right. We'll assume as much. So we will close the general public comment. Consent agenda consists only of approval of the February 21st, 2023 meeting minutes. Commissioners, any additions or corrections to the minutes? None, didn't catch any this time, Wendy. Anybody else? Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
No.
No? Okay, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
We approve as presented.
I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Business item 6A, resolution for the annexation for property known as White Wing to the town of Timnath. Chad.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just get the screen to share here. All right, so this is a resolution approving the annexation proposal for a parcel of land totaling approximately 40 acres. The property is currently owned by Timnath Land Holdings LLC, and the applicant is Bamford Companies, represented by Greg Bamford. The petitioner owning more than 50% of the property and who are more than 50% of the property owners have submitted a request for annexation of property named White Wing Annexation. The statutory requirement for a minimum of 1/6 contiguity to the current town limits is attained by the property with Bus Grove Road to the south. The petition was brought forth to Town Council for substantial compliance on January 24th. Following their approval, noticing for today's public hearing was published for 4 consecutive weeks in the Coloradan, along with the town's requirement to notice within 500 feet of the property boundary. This property is currently located in unincorporated Larimer County and falls within the town's GMA. With this annexation, the applicant is requesting to amend the town's zoning map for this property to a state residential, complying with the town's comprehensive plan. The applicant is proposing a large lot residential development, which is listed as a primary use under the rural residential future land use designation in our comp plan. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Also, the applicant, Mr. Bamford, is here, and part of his team is actually in the cloud as well, if you have any technical questions on this property.
Okay, Chad, do they want to make any kind of presentation? So I think a bit more information would be helpful.
Sure.
To the commission. Good point. Are we gonna, Chad, are you essentially covering both items 6A and 6B as may I presume?
Yes, my apologies. That was both 6A and 6B
Okay.
as
Thanks.
they were together.
That's all right. That's what Marty called our attention to it. Thanks. Could you state your name and
Sure.
address, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of staff. My name is Greg Bamford. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. However, both my wife and I are alums of CSU back in the dark ages. And our real home is about 125 miles straight east of here at Haxton, Colorado. My family homesteaded there in the 1880s, and They're still out there farming. I spent the first 40 years of my life doing that. So we're not strangers to the area, and we're really looking forward to bringing a product that we've been developing in the Phoenix metro area for the last 25 years, the concept to this piece of ground. It's a perfect fit for what we do. We've built 535 half-acre and mostly 1 acre lots in 5 separate subdivisions in the southeast Phoenix metro area. And the typical method of what we do is to acquire land that's in an area that fits for low density residential. And we take it through the entitlement process, and we build the infrastructure, and we sell the lots one at a time to people that want to build their own custom home. And we help them do that by architectural review and landscape review. And we believe this 40-acre piece of ground that we're working with here is an ideal fit for that. As Chad has said, we've made application through the estate residential zoning classification, which allows for the overall density of 1 unit per acre. So that's what our plan is for 40 lots. There'll be predominantly 30,000 square foot lots. There'll be some a little bit smaller. None of them will be smaller than a half acre. We have 20% open space, private streets. The southwest corner of this land is bisected off of the mainland by the Lake Canal. So we're going to leave that in a park, and it'll be a park that'll be used for residents and non-residents of the area. We're going to have connecting trails through the project for bicycle and pedestrians to get to the Timnath Lake, to the Timnath Reservoir recreation area. On both our north side and our east side of the property are our common boundary with the reservoir. We will be rebuilding our side, the north half of Busgrove Road. Some of you are probably very familiar with the recent improvements that have taken place on Busgrove. From our southeast corner going east, Busgrove Road has been rebuilt recently, and that will continue to the west now that we've got our plans going, and the Timnath Lakes project, where we are in touch with them. And I'll tell you more about how that's going to work here in a minute, but they're working from south to north. Eventually, they'll be building their side of the Busgrove Road improvement. That project, realigning or building Busgrove Road, is going to require a modest change in the alignment of the engineers have asked us to work as hard as we can to straighten out that curve that's right along on our south boundary the best we can. And we're working on that. We're going to have to move the canal a little bit. It's a tough job, but it'll be an improvement when we're finished with it. In terms of public safety, we've provided emergency access along our east boundary. We'll utilize the trail that accesses the water tower for Fort Collins Loveland Water. You all have seen it up there probably. That tower land that it sits on is our boundary, or we share a common boundary with that water tower. So we'll have a connecting link in our subdivision for an emergency access in case it's ever needed, that cooperates with the Fort Collins Loveland Water District. And there's also 2 residences existing on the west side of our property that are on the upper side of Lake Canal as it goes along there. And the significance of that is because the bridge across the canal is not sufficient to handle fire equipment. They've not been able to get fire insurance for, well, I don't know if they ever did. I don't know, but by a little quirk that we've been able to put in our subdivision to allow access, I think we'll be able to get them fire insurance over there in an emergency situation. So I think that's a benefit for the public health and safety as well. Some of you, I know Don has been involved with this in discussions. We've been hung up for this for about a year on this project, trying to figure out how we were going to get sanitary sewer to it. And the problems were, we're in the Box Elder district, and we've had great cooperation all with so many people to try to figure all this out. And we finally did. But the problem came from the fact that we could not get a gravity line to drain this ground into a sanitary sewer unless we wanted to put 1,000 feet of it 35 feet below ground. And we said, for a little project like this, we can't do that. So Box Elder said, well, we don't like it, but we would let you build a pump and a lift station and a force main to get, there's a little swale between our ground and main that the naked eye just can't see, but the engineers can tell you it just won't work. We'd have to put in a pump and a force main. And I don't like them, but we pretty well resolved to it, but we just kept working and talking, and we finally arrived, thanks to Brian Zick, to help us see and volunteer to do an exchange between South Fort Collins, which is right across, all of the yellow to the south of us right there. Gravity feeds toward the river, and we can gravity across the road and use that to deliver sewage out of our project. Unfortunately, South Fort Collins did not have the capacity to take an extra 40 lots, but we came up with an exchange of service area where Box Elder is giving up land that can be gravity served into South Fort, or the other way around. South Fort Collins will give up some service area that Box Elder will pick up at another location in exchange for South Fort Collins taking the sewer here. So it is a win-win all the way around. There won't be any pumps or lift stations, and it'll all be gravity. So that concept has been reached in agreement by both boards, Box Elder and South Fort Collins, and we're in the process of documenting that now. And that includes conversations with Mark Thomas and the Water Quality Planning, the 208 committee. Don represents Timnath on that committee, and everybody's working to see if we can get this done administratively, and I'm hoping that we can. So those are the key features. My engineer is supposed to be on Zoom on the call here in case something technical comes up. I don't know how that works, but I think we have made great progress to be where we are, and I think it'll be a nice addition to that area of Harmony Ranch and Wild Wing, our custom homes. We have the same intent of quality of what we're going to bring, and we fit the general plan of the density that is allowed there. So I think it's a good use for the land, and a good opportunity for us to come to I wanted to introduce my son. I've neglected. David he's my partner. He's a corporate pilot, and he's helped us build White Wings over the years, and he'll be helping us get this one built. So it's a great opportunity for us to come to the community.
Thanks, Greg. Do we in fact have his engineer online? That's who's up there. Okay. Greg, is there anything they want to offer proactively? We'll probably have some questions to lob to them. But
yeah, no, I think just fire the questions away and let us help answer them the best we can. All right.
First thing, I'm going to open it to public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment on White Wing 6A and 6B? We don't. Okay. Greg, why don't you come back up, if you will? I waited for you to sit down on purpose. Now bring it up to the commissioners. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Bamford. Marty? Go ahead.
So one thing is the page 18. It was the petition, the signature page. It had Larimer County crossed out in Weld County. Is that because the person signing it lived there?
Yeah, at the time, the owner, I believe Patricia Blackburn, was actually in Weld County, not for the property itself, but her actual address.
Okay, just making sure. So question then is, one of the things is that's kind of a big ravine there. So what do you envision on being able to build in there? Is it a massive amount of fill, or just keeping the way it is and cutting in, or?
Well, we're going to maintain that waterway, but there is going to be a lot of dirt moved, a lot of dirt.
Yeah. So is it the idea to bring everything up for mountain views or just?
Well, there'll be a good percentage of the lots that will have mountain views. There'll be some that won't.
Mhm,
But we will be moving a lot of dirt,
mhm. Okay,
but that natural water course will still be there.
yeah. Then you answered the road improvements. I think that was it for me. One of the things I thought was interesting, there's a lot more talk now about the secondary buildings, backyard buildings and things. Is there anything from a legislation standpoint that's making that, people more able to build those sorts of things? Or it just, okay,
Yeah, so the proposal that they had in there for the accessory buildings is in line with what we have in our code. It was just proposed by the applicant.
yeah.
What the vision is for that.
And
Property.
no rentals of those, right?
Based on what that document they presented was, it would not be.
Okay.
But there are allowances within the town to have some accessory dwellings.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioners, other questions?
I have
Lisa?
a few. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that property. It is, you got the big ravine, you've got basically the dump from on the top by the water tower. You've got, so you say you're going to be moving a lot of dirt. It's almost a plateau and then some ravines. Like Marty said, are you going to level it? Or, I mean, tell us a little bit about how you're going to move, because you'll basically be changing the whole entire landscape of that property then.
Well, that's true. But we'll be building, envelopes where people can, where the home will fit and work. And we do have some geotech challenges with the subsoils on shale and different things that we can import dirt, or we can maybe do some treatment of some subsoils, but overall, it won't be flat by any means when we're done, but it will be evened out so that there will be 40 good building envelopes.
Because on the east side, you're basically sloping straight down and into that property that's there. So are you, I mean, that's not even unless you level it or have slope side homes.
The east side of our property, you mean,
Mm-hmm.
that joins up to the reservoir?
No, I mean the west side. I'm sorry, west
Oh.
side.
Yeah, no, there'll have to be a lot of dirt work done in there.
Okay. What happens to the residences that are there? Are they going to be removed? And I don't even know if
You
they're
mean
residents,
on
but
our
they're-
property?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those buildings will be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also no, I don't know. I can't put a volume on it, but there is wildlife there that spends a lot of time there. There's a herd of deer, and those are basically going to be dislocated. I mean, obviously you build a bunch of houses there,
Well-
they're going to be going. They migrate up from the river, I know, but
No. No, our intent is to keep as much of the tree population in there that we can. But it's been a complaint from Lake Canal that they haven't been able to get in there and maintain that canal for a long time. Just minimal maintenance is all that's been done for years and years in there. So in our plan, we're going to be allowing them access to be able to get in there to maintain that hasn't been done for years. We did hire a guy by the name of Jesse Dillon with Cedar Creek Associates as ecological. It's in the packet. It was added into, I don't know if it made it to your desk or not, but he did a study for us 90 days ago or so, addressing anything that has to do with plant or animal life in that area that might be of concern. And we're going to be sensitive to some things, but there were no protected species or endangered species or anything like that showed up. But we want to develop that into a nice park down there in that southwest corner. And the canal will serve as it's the seep out of the canal that makes those cottonwoods grow like that. And we want to continue. The canals, people would like to not have them there. So it's a balance between the nature and people's use, and that we're going to try to maintain.
so as far as the other surrounding lands, particularly directly to the north, that is reservoir and that is maintained. That has no ability to be changed because that land actually is owned by the irrigation company, correct? And what about to the east? Same thing there?
Yep, it is the
West,
east,
no, east.
east and north are both owned by the same, the reservoir company. Anything to the west would be within the town's GMA for low density residential, similar to this.
Right.
Our comp plan has just open space for those areas to the north and the east.
Right. But they're not even privately held. They're owned by the irrigation company, so nothing can happen any unless the
Correct.
irrigation company.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep, so they are not part of the town.
okay. And then the question that I have more for you is under this rezoning application, is that estate residential the only option under that to be rezoned? You say it fits under that, but is it the only option?
Yeah, so the designation in the comp plan would allow for the lowest of densities, which is state residential, and then also the agriculture zoning. Those are the two designations that would be allowed within that. For the use of 40 dwelling units on this property, the state residential is the one that would need to be brought forth to allow those uses.
And currently there's no use on it at all. I mean, it's not really,
Pasture land.
yeah, pasture land's the only thing. I mean, you can't crop it, you can't do anything, and you could graze it, but there's nothing to, okay. I think those were all my questions. Thank you.
Other questions? Wendy, anything? No? Mike? Jeremy? Okay, and this is, Greg, I said 40 units. That's what I understood, 40,
Right.
40 home sites, none smaller than a half an acre.
Right.
I see. These are all custom builders. You're not,
We're
not
we're not
building as well.
builders.
That's-
We, as I said, we buy land that we believe we can bring the application of what we offer, which is a custom home building site. So we take it through this process that we're engaged in right now of gaining the land entitlements. And then we build the infrastructure, all the grading, all the underground utilities, roads, streets. This will be a gated community. And we market the lots one at a time to people who want to build. And then we help them, we'll help them find a builder. We do have architectural controls and review on both landscape and architecture that will maintain the integrity of the ground, but it will be very diverse architecture. And yes, the secondary buildings are a big thing. But we have rules on those as far as square footages and setbacks. And in our case of the architecture review, they have to be the same architectural style as the main residence. They have to be the same materials, the same colors, and everything has to fit together to keep the integrity of the subdivision up.
Don, maybe this is a question for you. I guess I never thought about the turn there. What can you tell us that Mr. Bamford's talking about improving that turn there? And I suppose it's the rise at the same time there. What happens there? And does this coincide, if I could, does this coincide with the further expansion of Busgrove to
Yes.
the improvements to the west?
Yeah, it does. And that straightening out has been something we've predicted for a long time and have talked to both Landings and Mr. Bradsford's folks about it. And it'll be a welcome change. And the ditch crossing also will factor into that. And it's not an easy engineering exercise because there's both horizontal and vertical challenges along with the ditch. But they'll be up to it.
Is this,
It's not going to be string straight. But it'll be a lot better than it is right now.
It'll meet design criteria, let's put it that way. And the existing road doesn't.
and is there a turning lane, runoff lane?
For their development?
Yeah,
Don't know that yet. We'll need
Yeah.
a traffic
That'll
study.
be
to
part of the
determine
final
that.
plating process.
Yeah.
I see. Is that required necessarily for something that's relatively small?
It would come out in the traffic study and with the rest of the engineering documents that we get. 40 units is not very many. So we'll see what transpires.
Okay. Other questions before we? Anything else, Greg, you want to
I think
offer?
I wanted to keep it short and answer the questions and we're going to keep going ahead and get underway.
Okay, I'm sorry we didn't have any questions for your engineer up there in the sky.
Yeah. Well, we're busy working on the final plat, but we want to get through the process with the town council and with you folks as we're.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. And again, Natalie, we didn't have anybody signed up on either. Okay, all right, now we need to take each business item separately. So first, I need a motion on business item 6A, a resolution for the annexation for property known as White Wing to the town of Timnath. Do I have a motion on 6A?
Motion to approve item 6A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6B, zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as White Wing. Do I have a motion?
Go ahead.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to Timnath.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Appreciate your cooperation. We'll
Thank
do
you.
our part.
Item 6C, Timnath Ranch ninth filing preliminary plat. Who's got that one? Kevin.
Thank you, Chairperson. As you mentioned, this is a preliminary plat proposal for the ninth filing of the Timnath Ranch subdivision. The owner is T-Rock LLC, represented tonight by Jason Sherrill, and the applicant is TV Group, represented tonight by Mike Walker. This preliminary plat proposes to provide 29 single-family detached lots, 38 paired home lots, 340 single-family attached townhome lots, and then 2 development tracts for 100 condominium units for a total of 507 units within the roughly 109 acres of the Timnath in Timnath Ranch. This property is located just west of Schoolhouse, south of Harmony Road. The zoning is R3 and R4 within this area, and then community commercial up adjacent to Harmony Road as shown there. The residential is comprised of roughly 72 acres, and the remaining 37 acres is for commercial. Per Harmony Corridor requirements for the commercial area, this application or applicant also provided a development structure plan for the anticipated road network and trail connections within the commercial as well. This preliminary plat meets the parks and open space requirements for R3 and R4 zoning, and along with the Harmony Corridor landscaping along Harmony Road. This proposal includes roughly 1.3 acre central park. As you can kind of see the square green square in the middle of that property there, that's the roughly 1.3 acre park. And then they are providing roughly 37% open space, which exceeds the 25% requirement for R3 and R4. And then of that 37%, 53% is usable by the way of green areas, courtyards and plazas, and then multi-use pathways. As you can see, there's a large spine of green belt that runs from north to south through that central park. And then they have some other open space parkland spread amongst the property as well. The gross density for the residential in this area is roughly 7 units per acre, which complies with the R3 and R4 zoning, which have a maximum of 8 and 24 units respectively. So this is also an interesting one just based off of the combination of townhomes, paired homes, condominiums, and single family detached. So parking for every one of those units would be 2 units per, or 2 spaces per unit is the requirement. They are providing roughly 1,800 spaces, which is garage and driveway combination of parking. So they are providing roughly 3.5 spaces per unit. Every unit that is within this development does have at least a 1-car garage. Majority have 2-car garages with the townhomes. The applicant can kind of go into that a little bit more if you have questions on that. They are also providing 177 off-street parking spaces throughout the project for overflow and guest parking for a total of just roughly 2,000 parking spaces within this development. The minimum lot size on this preliminary plat is 1,800 square feet to 5,200 square feet for the townhomes, and then roughly 2,200 to 2,900 square feet for the paired homes, and then roughly 74 to 13,500 square feet for the single family detached lots. There was a neighborhood meeting held for this application on October 29th here at the town center. The observation report was attached in this packet with concerns from residents that had attended. Staff has reviewed this application against the sketch plan, zoning, and land use code, and found it to be in compliance with those documents. With that, I will turn it over to Mike for a brief presentation.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. You guys do a great job with your staff report and definitely makes our job easier tonight. So commissioners, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Is this the mouse that controls it? Okay. As Kevin said, there's a few things that I'd like to go over. I don't like to have a big formal presentation, but I like to have an open conversation to answer your questions when the time is right. Let's see. Let's change it. Okay, yep. So again, my name's Mike Walker with TV Group. We got Jason Sherrill with Landmark Homes, John Turner, which I'm sure you know from Hillside, Danny Weber, civil engineer, and we also have Ruth Rollins, who's our traffic engineer too, to ask any questions here in person. So that is our design team. As Kevin mentioned, what I wanted to really highlight at this point was the approved sketch plan there on the left versus our site plan on the right. I truly feel that we've matched it, to a T. Density is exactly what was approved. The road network is pretty much exactly what we proposed in the sketch plan. We've gone, and as Kevin also discussed, we went well above and beyond the amount of open space that is required. Landmark takes a lot of pride in having open space and having open space, usable open space for their residents. So, that is one thing that we're proud about, is bringing that amount of open space to these projects. Density is spot on. And then the one other thing is, we're not applying for any modifications. We're not applying for any variances. We are following the land use code, which we take pride as well. We like to follow the rules and make the approval process as simple as possible. So with that, if you want to go to the next one, so that's the plat. That's exactly what we're trying to get approved through tonight. That's not the story we want to talk about. There's much more to it. Jason Sherrill is here to kind of talk about his vision of this T-Rock development and talk a little bit of Landmark Homes.
Good evening, Planning Commission and staff. Jason Sherrill with Landmark Homes. Really, between the staff and what Mike said, I just want to add a few things. Maybe if we could go, there we go. Thank you. What I think I want to highlight, which again is somewhat reiterated with what was previously discussed, is the amount of open space. So we significantly increased the amount of open space from the approved sketch plan, more than doubled the amount of open space. And so what's critical for us, and Kevin kind of made point of it, is that it's not just the amount of common open space that is really available for all the residents, not just the residents of this community, but all the Timnath Ranch community. But also when we're planning our product, our homes, and the way we work with the team at TBG and others, is we really want the architecture out on the street. And if it's not out on the street, kind of strengthening that right of way or that streetscape, it's fronting pocket parks. So the image actually that Kevin showed really, I think, highlighted how many little pocket parks there are laced throughout the project, which is one of the benefits that you get when you have a product mix like this. which allows the creation, certainly there's higher density, but it allows for more parking, more garages, and more kind of this network of green space and a ribbon that kind of leads people and connects people within the community and basically from the community to the south within the community in north. So really just want to highlight that, that's one of the many benefits of a project like this with the additional density. You do actually have additional open space. And also, obviously, with our focus at Landmark Homes, we do a lot of different products, but it's kind of attacking, if you've heard that phrase, the missing middle. A product that becomes more and more affordable for more people. Our price point for this product, and when I say affordable, it's kind of ironic, but it's going to be like in the $400,000 to $700,000 range, which is shocking that that's now what is attainable, but that's the reality of where we're at. And I think this provides an opportunity for people that might not have been able to afford to live up and down the Harmony corridor, access to an extraordinary community, walkable to the school, to other amenities, and just all the things that lifestyle has to offer here in Timnath. So we're excited about being here. I think it's a great compliment to help kind of round out what is Timnath Ranch with all the things that are going on there. And I think also, and John can allude to this a little bit here in a few minutes if you'd like, it's part of the recipe that's going to help attract a really vibrant neighborhood retail commercial center, which I think really serves the community, that keeps a lot of people from maybe traveling up and down Harmony Road, because some of those services now can be within their community. And it's projects like this that help make that happen. So that's about all I have to say. We can answer questions, I guess, when the time is right. Or I guess we're going to go to John. Yeah, John will talk a little bit about the commercial, because I think it's a very integral piece of the puzzle.
Good evening, John Turner, Hillside Commercial Group. So for some of you that have been here now for over decades, this was kind of one of the key pieces that launched the new Timnath as opposed to the old Timnath. This project had to address many of the challenges in the town. The school site, no one wanted to dedicate a school site. We dedicated and built a school site. Timnath had tough drainage issues. I remember Don bringing up the Box Elder floodplain, and he warned me about it at least 15 and possibly 20 years ago. So we had major storm issues. Sewer issues were the biggest, even natural gas. Timnath did not have any significant natural gas, and bringing up the main line from Ptarmigan was very expensive and very challenging through all the times. Our initial master plan was more of I call it a typical, as we came up to Harmony, a 1980s type development where we planned a shopping center, and the shopping center did not really engage directly with the community. And probably in the last 2 years to 3 years working with the Birdsall Group and Jason Sherrill, the whole point of this revision was to have the neighborhood to be able to walk up and engage with our commercial. So what we used to have planned and what we have planned now is more of a contemporary mix between commercial and residential. And it engages with it instead of most shopping centers. If you look at Harmony and Safeway on Harmony or King Soopers in Windsor, they stick their shopping center there, and then they stick their loading docks in the back. And there's no real connectivity from the back of the commercial to the residential neighborhoods. And we've flipped this completely, where all our paths, you're going to be able to ride your bike. You could take whatever and walk up and easily come up and walk home after dinner. It's a completely different type of interaction between our residential, attached residential community and our commercial. And that's going to help drive the commercial, and it also helps the residential. It's really a win-win, and it's more of a contemporary type development than the historical shopping center, go out and around. And the only way you're going to get into the center is drive. This is not that. This is connectivity, pedestrian, and Jason alluded to a lot of it is, and Windsor had this problem for a long time, was everybody left on Saturday morning to go shop in Fort Collins. And the sales tax leakage that Windsor happened to Windsor for decades. The whole point of this is now we have the Walmart and the Costco and all those. Now it's the smaller stores. We're still losing a lot of sales tax leakage to that. And the point of our retail and design now is to keep our people staying here. And that can reduce trips, that can keep our cars here, reduce, if you need to go to a Sandwich, you don't have to drive into Fort Collins, you can drive here and keep our residents here and then attract from other directions. So there's a lot going into this plan, and we're welcome to answer any questions that you might have.
John, were you all that teasing with shopping and restaurant, grocery store? Were you tipping us off on anything here?
Yeah,
You don't have to answer that. I'm just.
We do have one grocery store that's a developer wants the whole commercial right now. And he has a grocery store and he's doing the exact grocery store in Johnstown. And we don't know if it's a good enough fit for Timnath. We have two banks interested. One wants to put their headquarters at our front door, which is at Club Drive. And we have a credit union that also wants to go there. And you guys would know both of them if you inquire. And we have two restaurants and a pharmacy. So one of the things I wanted to share, and I don't mean to get off topic, the new Harmony corridor doesn't really want the drive-through, but the drive-through, there's a lot that's gone on in COVID where a lot of buildings now that weren't drive-throughs are now drive-throughs. So one of the first challenges we had was the bank wanted a drive-through. Well, there's some challenges in the code in the Harmony Corridor Plan that I could see revisiting with planning in the future, where I think the intent is not to have drive-through restaurants like a Burger Shack and those type of things. But because of COVID, there's a lot of pharmacies, there's a lot of different businesses now that are not insisting, but progressing into some drive-through concepts that we might try and revisit some of the Harmony Corridor issues. So, but those are what's on the table right now. We think the longer we hold out, the better grocery store we could get there. So,
Thanks, John. See how easy it is to get the scoop on everybody and start all these rumors? Yeah. Right? You like that? Let's open it to public comment here. Natalie, anybody signed up for public comment on item 6C?
Jim Gross.
Hi, I'm Jim Gross. Thank you for letting me talk. We're at 6746 Stone Point Drive, and our backyard sees all of this development coming through. I see a lot of positive things for this development. There's a lot of things going on that will aid and help us. I do see some challenges that come up, and some of those challenges are traffic. As was stated tonight, we've got about 2,000 new automobiles or trucks or whatever that are coming in to the area. And with the school there, this neighborhood, our kids walk to school and they cross the streets. And that is a potential that needs to be dealt with. I think my wife and my biggest concern is the density. In 108 acres, you've got 500 doors, more than 500 doors. And that's a lot that's there. So we're concerned about that. And finally, I think and I don't know if this is the right place to determine this, but there's a lot of work done in our backyard with the detention ponds that are there. And I know it's necessary, it needs to happen. But what I'd like for it to do, and I'd like to ask the Planning Commission to consider this, is that be landscaped so that it's not a dead space between two live spaces, if you know what I mean. So that it has a nice landscaping, that it does have some separation. I know that's going to be the case. But I think that's going to be a transition into a nice landscaped area throughout all of Timnath Ranch, and not just the natural grasses that are going to be there. So I'd like that to be considered with this request. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's at least one thing in there we can address, landscaping on a detention pond. Is that what I understood?
That detention pond is actually not a part of this subdivision. It's
I know.
a separate item, and there is a landscape plan associated with that detention
There
pond.
is, and as there is with every detention pond, am I
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. And that's something you review and approve, part of our code.
Yeah, that has already been approved
Okay.
as part of that work.
All right. All right. And anybody else, Natalie?
Dave Bolgart.
Okay. And I should have mentioned it, although Mr. Gross adhered to our 3-minute time limit. We do have a 3-minute time limit.
Yeah,
And
mine,
request for civility, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. Nobody
Mine-
here looks dangerous. Anyway,
mine will be short. I'm Jim's neighbor. He asked most of the
Okay.
questions that I
And you
was going to
could-
ask.
and if you could state your name and address.
Yeah, Dave Bolgart, 6734 Stone Point Drive. So the additional questions that I have are, how's the Metro District going to work? Is that with our current Metro District that we have in the North subdivision, or is that separate? i.e., does our costs go up because of all the new streets and all the sewers and everything like that? And then how is the schools going to work? I know the school is already overcrowded, so I think the average is like 3 or 4 people per household. So that's probably 1 or 2 children per household. So that's like 1,000 new kids. How is the schools going to adapt to that?
Good. Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Staff, John, this is part of a metro district, isn't it? Yeah, why don't you're the best one to
Okay, so,
speak to those, and I know you will.
The Timnath Ranch section, this is section 1, and all of section 1, except the very northeast corner, is in the Timnath Ranch Metro District. Timnath South has their own Metro District. There has no impact except adding AV. It has more obligations. The Metro District has to take care, provide the non-pot system. We have an agreement where they're going to take care of the new park and a few other associated things that the Metro District does. It doesn't, I know of nothing. In fact, the commercial will greatly benefit the Metro District because of not only does it get impact fees, it gets the commercial mill rate on the Metro District, which is highly beneficial. The best Metro districts that I'm aware of are the ones that have multiple land uses, single family, attached, industrial, which we already have, and retail, which we have in Timnath Ranch Fifth, and the 32 acres of commercial on this property. So our Timnath Ranch Metro District will be, it already is a pretty strong district. It'll be a very strong district with the commercial addition. In regards to the school site, even within Timnath, there's boundaries within, not everybody in Timnath went to this school site in Timnath Ranch. In fact, if you lived in Timnath South, you didn't go to this elementary school in Timnath Ranch. You had to go to the old Timnath Ranch school. The Timnath schools got so overcrowded that I sold the Poudre School District another school site down by Highland Meadows to alleviate demand at Timnath, because Timnath had more growth than West Windsor does. So I've sold them one site and they couldn't find a property. None of the other developers would donate land to Poudre Schools, which I did to get the school site in Timnath Ranch. Then no one would sell them ground down east of I-25. And I was the only one that sold them ground. And they actually bought 15 acres and opened up Banford School, which is the most recent school in the Timnath, in the Poudre School District. So I've done 2 school sites to accommodate the growth. And but it is interesting. Timnath South, if you live there, you can't even go to, I forget the school in Bethke. I went blank because Bamford opened up. But Poudre School monitors who goes to, so the people at Timnath Ranch will go to Bethke, and people in other, they have their own district. So we have to accommodate our own growth. I have my own commitment and relationship with Poudre Schools. I'm accommodating our people. I'm also the one that brought in the second school street light, and we're accommodating our traffic. And we have our traffic engineer here, but we've provided the lanes and the accommodations for our development. So
Hold on one
try to
second.
address.
Okay, hold on one second,
Sure.
John. Natalie, has anybody else signed it before? One of my associates here reminds me I violated the protocol a little bit. Do we have anybody else signed up? Normally we'd complete the public comment, close the public comment. Do we have anybody else signed up for public comment? Okay, you would like to speak on this agenda item? Okay, John, just, yeah, let him go ahead, and you'll have 3 minutes as well, and state your name and address,
Jeff
please.
Jones, 6630 Pebble Path Court. So basically, if we could bring that back up, that'd be great. Originally, when we bought our home, we were not aware of the rezoning because the rezoning was done before all the building on our side is, which but basically right back up to all of this new development. It was sold to us as 125 homes. And I want to say I'm sorry if my numbers are wrong, 125 homes and about 85 townhomes, which was understandable, and a commercial space in front of that. Well, just recently is when we found out about all this. Everyone who lives near me, and you guys as well, none of us knew this was going to get done. And it didn't seem like any of it got done until after the last home was sold, which I think you guys may have been one of the last ones, which is when we found out about all of this. As a homeowner, I am not excited about commercial integrating in with my community. I think you guys call them stacked ranches, are just apartment complexes as well. Like not happy with that. Understand townhomes, not really too worried about the schools or anything, but so far commercially, all I've heard about is a gas station and a liquor store. That's all we've heard about so far commercially, which no one else has been excited about that as well. I think a lot of what they have done is good, but if you go and look at like our pool, right? If you look at the original plans of our pool compared to what we got for our pool, they're two different things. So I think I don't understand this process. This is not what I do. But what I can say is what originally goes up and then what finally gets done seem to be two different things. Like they get through a process, they get it done, and then they're like, oh, we're going to do a little bit less. Oh, we're going to do a little bit less here. And as far as the Metro District, I mean, we just increased the taxes or our dues for our Metro District, which inflation, everything went up. Not really upset about that. There's nothing you can do. But their suggestion when I think we had 25 people at the community meeting, no one was happy about it, but they weren't really giving us answers. They're like, this is the way it is. There's nothing you can do to change it. And I've asked people like, hey, can we get a petition together? See if we can get this rezone. Am I at 3 minutes?
Getting close.
Oh, that's not time out. Let's keep going. But either way, I don't want to be integrated with the commercial space. I don't want some random people walking back there. My kids walk past their house every day to go to school. All it's going to do is more traffic. I do think, it's their land. It's America. They have every right to maximize their dollar, right? And that's good. But there's just certain things I think they're pushing too far. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Looks like we have somebody else who would like to speak. Okay, I'd remind you in the future, please sign up in advance. Okay. Come up to the podium, state your name, address, and adhere to our 3
Sorry about
minute.
that. I was at work. I wasn't.
And state your name, address, please, and adhere to our 3 minute time limit. Thank you.
Sure. And sorry, I didn't sign up. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to come in. I just left work and I was able to make it. So Vinny Deniz, 6600 Tombstone Ridge Road. First, in regards to this, a couple of years ago, I was pretty passionate about it. When I came in, I was against the rezoning. And I'd like to make a more like of a general comment in regards to this, and it extends to everything else too. So density, right? So folks that move to Timnath, just like the gentleman stated, I believe we wanted a low density location to live, right? And what I think, and at least that's my perception, talking to folks on my street or everyone I know, is that there's no one wants more density. I have never met someone who said, man, we're going to build up with ranches and apartments, and this is going to be awesome. The revenue for the town is going to increase. We're going to have more money to do this. And it's quite the opposite. It's like most folks, or if not, I'd say most, I'm not going to say everyone. Some folks may want it, but most folks think, you know what, I don't care about the money. I don't want the revenue. I want nothing to do with that. I just want to be quiet and peaceful and that way. So what I'd like for you to think, each one of you who have the power to decide and to do things here, is that I'd like you to think that you should represent us. And by that is whatever you as people, as individuals think is good for the town doesn't really matter. What matters is what we want you to do, because you're elected representatives of the country and of the city. I mean, in this country, we fought a war against taxation without representation, and we won the war. And I like every one of you to look yourselves in the mirror when you sleep and ask, do my residents want this? You may think as a citizen, as a resident, you can think with yourself, I think this will be great. But you know what? The folks don't want it, so I'm going to vote against it. Or the other way around. I think this will be terrible, but everyone wants it, so I'm going to vote for it, right? So this is what I'd like you to think in regards to this, in regards to Topgolf, in regards to everything that you plan on doing, subsidizing things. Talk to folks. I like to say either put surveys out or propose a ballot in an election. Should we do this or that? Just an open mind. Like I like you to, when you talk amongst yourselves outside of the public setting, you go, oh, hey, what's up? Or let's say, Brett, hey, what do you think, man? Hey, I like that idea, but folks don't want it. So let's not vote for it, even though we think it's going to be great. So I like you to represent us in whatever you decide. I like to be sure that you talk to a simple 15 seconds, just close arguments. A sample of folks say, hey, I talked to 100 folks, 80 don't want it, 20 want it, or I want to see the substance and not just like, hey, we're going to push this, try to get this through and we want it. Let's try to rubber stamp things with public comments or whatever they may be just to get this through. So just please do this, represent us, do a favor to our town, to our residents. We love you. I want you to be successful. I want you to do great, but please represent our will, the will of the majority who elected you. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie, anybody else signed up or otherwise? Very good. All right. With that, we close public comment. I'm going to bring it up here, commissioners. Staff, before we do that, the concept for this in simple terms dates back how many years? Over 10 years, am I correct?
Well, Timnath Ranch, back to 2004, 2005 time. The change that happened with this specific property started back in 2018 with a sketch plan amendment. Was when that had first came out, and then it went through the process for sketch plan amendment, rezonings, that to get to this point now. So it's been at least 4 to 5 years, 4.5 years that this property specifically has had some type of application associated with it. But yeah, Timnath Ranch goes back longer than that, but this one is more recently 4 to 5 years.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to have some context for everybody. Okay, let's bring it up here. Commissioners, Mike? Looks like I saw you turn your light on, so I'd start that way. No? Okay, Jeremy.
All right, so I got I guess a handful of them. So I myself being a resident in Timnath Ranch and the Meritage homes over there. So my understanding, and just because I've got kids that go to that school, so Timnath South, I would say 90% of Timnath South actually goes to Bethke. So the only ones that don't go to Bethke are to the west of Three Bells, which is more the Summerfield Estates. So pretty much all the original Timnath Ranch preserves are all funneling to Bethkey. Having a child, now soon to be two children, when what is now 12-year-old, they were overcrowded at that point, adding additional to, I think it was, to Dave's point, I mean, adding that many more kids, is there a study that is out there that says, yes, Bethkey, because these are all going to be funneling to Bethkey and Bethkey specific, can Bethkey handle 500 or even 1,000 students in the next 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, so when we did the sketch plan amendment back the couple of years ago, Poudre School District actually has a rough calculation of students per household. And they have a calculation based off of single family, detached, and then attached products. So that includes townhomes, condos, apartments. The apartment number is less than a single family detached. So the previous plan that was for this area, in this proposed plan, the number of students that would be generated from either option would have been about the same. They were within 10 to 15, I believe I'd have to go back and double check that number of each other, that if it had developed primarily a single family detached versus what is being proposed, the school district, they actually reviewed that. The school district actually showed up to, I believe, the council meeting at that time to state that, as well as that the number of students that would be generated from either plan would be virtually the same. And then, as Mr. Turner did mention, that there is the new, Bamford Elementary School that actually alleviated a lot of the students that were coming from south of Timnath into Bethkey that were then now being put back into more of the Windsor area to open up for students in this. So the number of students was actually going to be virtually the same, whether it was the original plan or this plan here.
Got it. Okay. And then I guess the other thing would be, whether it pertains to this or not, but also seeing the size of the pool in that metro district that everybody gets to use now. Is there going to be additional add-ons to that, or are they just adding additional 500 homes to a already smaller than originally planned?
So that would be up to the metro district. That'd be up to the developer. A pool is not a requirement of the town or metro district. The development that is what is known as the 8th filing to the northeast of Bethkey, they have their own pool. They have, their own amenities for within that development. So this one would be, adding on to the existing pool and facility. But yeah, it's not a requirement that they would have to upsize that metro district pool.
Okay, that's my questions.
Marty.
So I thought I saw in some of those drawings, as I was going through the packet, there's different entrance onto Harmony. There's an additional one.
It might be just the loop.
So some of those sketches were.
Yeah, there is a right-in, there would be a right-in, right-out, kind of centrally from Club to roughly Three Bell. There would be a right-in, right-out. That would also be an access point for the commercial. And then that commercial would loop down and tie into the, there would also be a tie-in to the roundabout that's just south of Harmony on Club. And then it will also funnel into the neighborhood as well.
Okay. And then the interior streets, is there street parking or no?
So the interior streets are private drives. Some of the streets are designed as a normal local road to also handle on-street parking. That's why they, in other areas, they have the 177 off-street parking spaces to allow for that overflow and guest parking. So it's kind of a mix, but since they're all private drives, they don't have to be designed to allow for on-street parking, but some of them are designed to allow for that.
Okay, then. Last thing is page 92 in the packet had it was kind of a strange, it must have been like some sort of sketch or something. It showed that whole area north as parking lots.
Oh yeah, that's the commercial. That's just a rough drop in. It's not, that's more for the development structure plan as a possibility. It's not setting in stone for parking, but that is just up in the commercial.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Wendy? Yep. Lisa?
I've got some. To address the density issue and the concerns that people have, you say that the, this matches a sketch plan that was submitted and did the density change in 2018 as far as the allowable density, or is that been something that has been set quite a while ago?
So the density did change for this area specifically. So there was what we call a shift in density. What I had alluded to was the 8th filing, which is kind of the northeast corner of the Peanut schoolhouse kind of there. That was originally slated for 636 units, all apartments. That actually developed out as 477. So they reduced the density in that area, and then they took essentially that density, shifted it over to this area here to allow for that additional density. So it was kind of a density shift from that northeast corner down to now this west side with a slight increase with it from that standpoint. So the density overall in Timnath Ranch is generally close to the same, a little bit higher than what was originally planned. But because of that density shift from taking from 636, what would have been all apartments, and they kind of shifted that. They reduced that to 477 and then shifted that density over to this area.
And that density, that changed in 2018?
Yeah, that was part of the sketch plan. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I was looking at. Some of the maps show that was a high density.
Yep, that was
Residential, that is-
originally slated for, like I mentioned, 636 in all apartments. That actually developed out with townhomes and apartments and some condominium as well, but it was 477 units in that area.
And when was that original density designated?
That was originally designated back, I want to say about 2007, maybe even earlier. From that standpoint, that was one of the early on, 2005, Matt's correcting me, was when that was designated for that high density.
Okay. So I'm just asking these questions to try and understand, everybody's concerns about when that shift changed. And you say, we moved in and we didn't know this. And it's really hard to know what developers have in mind, particularly if you're looking at comp plans and things like that. It's very difficult, but it sounds like it was envisioned as early as 2005 to be a very high density area. Some things shifted. It's a little different, but the bigger picture density is very similar to how it was anticipated.
There were some density increases throughout the early 2000s and into the early 2010s. From the original plan that occurred over time. But from that standpoint, there was higher density in the Northeast. It ended up being a little bit lower. And then some of that density was then requested to be shifted over to this area.
And in this proposal, it's not like they're asking for anything that they haven't, the developers, that hasn't already been previously approved.
Correct. This is reviewed. Yep. That sketch plan from a couple of years ago was approved for 507 lots or units. That's what they're proposing with this, meeting the R3, R4 standards. They're not asking for, increase or anything. At that point, if they were, we'd have to be back at sketch plan. So they're in line with what was approved a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We closed public comment. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I'm certainly not trying to make things disagree. I'm trying to understand the bigger picture so that we all are very clear on what, because as planning commissioners, we are a recommending body. We're not elected officials. So our job is to look at what the code is, what has been laid out in front of us, what is the whole process. Our job is to look at the bigger picture and really understand everything, not only concerns of neighbors and concerns of people who live, but also the process that has been either followed or not followed by the applicants. And so I'm asking these questions just to try and be educated enough that I can make a competent decision, which our charge is to make sure that the development meets code and does what it's supposed to. So My other question is relative to the density changes and the concerns about the school. You know, the developer has said that they have worked with to dedicate part of their land towards school and things like that, but no additional school is being planned for this region, correct?
No, the new Bamford down in Windsor was recently opened. That's what I mentioned, that kind of took a lot of the students from the Windsor south of Timnath area that were going into Bethke. I think at the time it was estimated at around 100 students that were going into Bethke that weren't in the Timnath Ranch, Timnath South area. So they've then been shifted into Bamford. And, you know, as things grow out, additional students will be as well going into that school. Their PSC always looks at additional schools in the area as well. If you may remember, they're looking at a school site up in the Kitchell Lake development. So then that would then also allow for kind of reshifting of their boundaries to allow more students to funnel into Timnath Elementary for a time being, funnel into that school, that new school, you know, if and when that comes on. So Poudre School District always looks at a lot of these, determine. But as I mentioned, when we went through the sketch plan, the number of students that they would project generated from the old plan versus this plan were virtually the same.
And Poudre School District is highly involved in all these developments as far
Yep.
as projections and knowing where students are going to be or doing their best educated work to
Correct.
figure out how to do it. Those are my questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I couldn't say what Lisa said any better than she said it. So I just say I echo it. It's unfortunate that one gentleman left completely before had a chance to hear her very eloquent understanding of what our charge is, and the other gentleman didn't accord her the right to hear her out completely, and that's very unfortunate. Commissioners, anything else? Staff, anything else? John, the rest of your team, anything else you'd like to add? Okay. All right, this is item 6C. Timnath Ranch 9th filing preliminary. Thanks, Lisa, by the way. Did I say thanks? Timnath Ranch 9th filing preliminary plat. Do I have a motion on item 6C?
Motion to approve item 6C.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
We had we had one no. Do you want to state what your objections is for
Sure.
the staffs to communicate to council?
So it's just one, there's a lot that I like about the plan, you know, the layout, things like that. And I do like the interface with the commercial. I just think it's too much for the area and it's going to overload it.
So noted, staff. Okay. All right, the item 6C advances on a 4-1 vote. Reports. Reports, commissioners, anything for the good of the order? No. We have, so next meeting, we know we have 3 absences. Does that include, right, Kevin, we knew we had 3 people. 4 people?
I think so. I have to go back and look.
And one of those 4 was Tom, Mike. Okay, so we will have, right now, we will have 4, or we'll have, okay. All right, that's good. So we'll have 4. That's not cutting it too close. Please let it, if anything changes, please let staff know as soon as possible. Dawn, anything? Okay, staff, anything else? All right, commissioners, last call. No. All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.